Everyone, this is Tanya with All Things Dazzle, and I am coming on today with a video to show you how I use Tinkercad to create my 3D STL files. So today I am working on some Greek letters, and I've already done 9 of them, but I need to send some to my printer to print. So I thought this would be a good way to show you how I create using Tinkercad. I created my letters in Silhouette Studio. I create the 2 layers, one being the letter itself, and then the second, because this is going to be a 2-layer file, an offset behind that letter. So I'm going to go ahead and import the letters that I want to work with today. So in order to do that, you come over here to import in Tinkercad. You have to create an account. It's free to create an account, but you come over here to import and you click on choose a file. And I'm going to go to where I have my file saved and it's already there. And I'm going to bring in, first I'm going to bring in my offset. So you click open, then you click on center to art and you click import. Okay, so now I have the first part of my file. I'm going to go in and bring in the second part of the file, which is the letter. Click open, center on art, and import. Okay, now I like to work in inches. Some people may like to work in millimeters, but I like to work in inches. But if you want to change those settings, you can come down here to the bottom of your screen and click on the button that says settings. When you click on it, you have some other attributes in here that you can work with. But down here towards the bottom, the units, imperial, metric, or bricks. Again, imperial is in inches, metric would be in millimeters. I'm going to keep mine on imperial, and you would either make that your default or you would just close the settings. Okay. Down here at the bottom below where it says settings, it has snap grid. And this is useful if you use the grid to line up your designs. I like to come in here and change it from 1/8 of an inch to 1/64 of an inch. That just allows me to make much smaller movements when I am working with the design. There are a lot of features in Tinkercad that you can use to help you with your alignment, such as the ruler, but I don't use those. I don't use those things at this particular moment. I'm still learning how to use the software, so I just do what works best for me. So anyway, now I have my 2 layers in, and as you can see, the second layer is somewhat embedded in the offset layer, and that's because it just brought those 2 layers. That's how it was in my file. It brought those 2 layers in. What we're going to do, I'm going to also import in the other layer, the other letters that I'm going to work with. So let me go ahead and move this out of the way and just drag a box. I just dragged the box around the whole thing, and then you can move it anywhere on the screen. So I'm going to move that out of the way. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to bring in my kappa. So I'm going to again bring in my offset first because it's my larger layer. Center to the art and click import. Okay. And then we're going to import the letter. and bring that in. Okay, so now I have the two letters that I want to work with today, my A and my K. Okay, so I'm currently working on a file where I'm making my Greek letter 2.5, about 2.5 inches in height and width. So in order to do this, I'm going to rotate my screen just so that I can see it from a different angle. And you just drag your cursor over here to this box and you click on it and you just kind of move it. And as you can see, it's labeled top, front, you can see the bottom, you can see the left, and you can rotate it to the right. Okay, so right now I'm just going to rotate it to the left, and I'm going to unclick so that I can work with just one letter. Let me back up a little bit. This area right here that says work plane, this is your surface, and you can kind of think of it as your in your slicing program, the bed for your slicer. So you always want your layers to be at least your bottom layers, whatever is going to face the plate on your 3D printer, you want that to be on the work plane. Okay. You can see here if I click on the letter A on the offset, you get this little cone here. This cone, you can click on it and pull it up into the air. Okay, that brings it up off of the work plane. Okay, so now you can see the bottom layer that was embedded earlier. Now we have that layer. I can also bring it up off of the work plane. Okay, but we can't have our letters floating in midair. The slicer won't recognize that. And if you do, you're going to have errors when you try to slice your file. So we always want to make sure that we're working on the work plane. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to click on my offset. Okay. If you want to change the color, you can. Tinkercad, the coloring is really only for your purposes. It does not mean anything per se when you bring it into your slicing program, because you can assign your color filaments from within the slicer. So it's really just it doesn't really serve a purpose other than for you to see exactly what you may have colored something. But in any event, so I'm working with my offset, okay? Just to show you how you can do this, we can change the color. You can click on solid, because that's what this is right now. This is a solid shape. And if I go, you can assign the different RGB colors if you like. If you know what the hex code is, you can type in the hex code if you want a specific color. But again, like I said, the colors don't really matter. I'm just going to go to the presets because there are some generic colors already in here for you. And so I want my base to be green. So I'm going to click on the green preset and just click off. Okay, so now I have my green bottom, and I want to size this to 6.5 inches in height. So I'm going to click this little red. When I hover over it, you see this gives you all of your dimensions. This currently tells us that the design is 2.584 inches in width, and the design is 2.5 inches in height. Okay, I want to change the actual width, the thickness of the letter, to 6.50. So in order to do that, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to click on this little box in the middle. And when I click on it, it shows me that the design currently is at 0.394 inches in width. You can click on this box. It will turn blue when it turns blue, you can type in your dimensions. So I'm going to type in 0.650 and hit enter. Okay. And that's going to resize that part of the design. Okay. So now that I'm done with that, I'm going to, it's highlighted, and you can tell that it's highlighted because you can see over here that the shape color is still showing. And it's the green shape that we're working on. I'm going to turn up the quality all the way up to 24. Always when you're working with a design that you bring in from another software program, you want to make sure that you adjust your quality and you want to turn it all the way up to the highest number. So that's 24. So now that I've done that, you can also adjust your height from here. Because I adjusted it from using the here, it doesn't show up here. If I change it now, 0.650, it actually increases it again. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to just drag it all the way down just to show you, but you can change your height from within the shape box. And I'm going to just come back in here, click on that, click on my 0.650. And actually, I think it actually, because I've already done it, it's adding that to the dimensions that I'd already done. So we're just going to go back. I'm going to go back. And you can use your back arrows and your undos and your redos. So I'm just going to undo those changes and take it back to my height of 0.650. We change that 0.650. Okay. And I'm going to drop this back down to the work plane. And so in order to do that, it's highlighted. All you have to do is click the letter D on your keyboard, and it will drop that all the way back down to the work plane. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I want to work with the second layer. Okay. So that's currently colored brown. I'm going to go ahead and change the color to pink because I'm working on, again, the Greek letters. So I'm working on the alpha, Kappa Alpha is what I'm going to be working on. So I'm going to change it to pink. And then I'm going to click off. So now that I have my A, okay, I want to first make sure that everything is lined up the way it needs to be. I want it to be everything to be centered. And so I'm just going to, I rotated the work plane so that I could just see it from the front. I'm going to take my cursor. I'm just going to drag a box around both of those letters. Okay. And I'm going to come up here to the top, and over here is your align tool. Okay. You click on align and it will bring up the alignment. Here is the top. Here's the center. Here's the bottom. Here's the center here at the bottom, and then here over here on your right. But as we can see, it's already grayed out in the centers. So that means that those two letters are already center aligned, and I don't have to do anything with them. So I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to click off. Okay. I'm going to rotate this back to the left just so that you can see. So now what I want to do is I want to create the internal layer for this design. And in order to do that, I have to slice a hole in order to fit the A, because two objects cannot occupy themselves in the printer. When you go to slice it, you'll wind up with a lot of issues. So you want to make sure you want to create the negative space that's necessary for this two-layer design. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my A, okay? And over here on the left, you have your copy, you have paste, you have duplicate and repeat, and then you have your trash can. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to click on the duplicate. Okay. So I click on duplicate. That made a second letter A in the same color as it currently is. And it is currently right here with the other A. You can't see it because it's duplicated right within the letter. But if I don't click on anything else, you can see that that particular letter that I just created is still the active thing that I'm working on in Tinkercad. Okay. So I just raised it up so that you can see it. Okay. What I want to do is I want to size this. Okay. I'm going to change the size. I'm going to click this middle button, this little red box right here, and that's going to change my width. Okay. And I'm going to change it to 0.050. Okay. That's what I want. You can change it to whatever you want, but I'm going to change it to 0.050. Okay. And I'm going to make it a hole. Okay. So over here on the shape tool, you have solid and you have hole. So I'm going to make mine a hole. And when I make it a hole, you can see that it turns gray. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that it is not on the bottom of the work plane, but that it is on top of the layer that I want to work on. So what you do is you come over here to the tool side of the screen, and the very first icon here under the word import is work plane, the work plane tool. So when you click it, okay, you click on it, you can see that it brings out a little work plane. I'm going to drag that work plane and I'm going to lay it on top of my A. And then I'm going to click. Okay. So now you get a second work plane that you are working on rather than the bottom work plane where the A currently sits. Okay. Because I want to work on top of this A. So now that I have my work plane set here, I'm going to go back to my hole. Okay. And I'm going to drop it. And if you remember, in order to drop it to the work plane, you just press the letter D on your keyboard. And as you can see, it dropped that directly on top of the A. Now from here, I want to create the negative space in the bottom A. I want to create this negative space. So you remember that we made this 0.050. So what I want to do is I want to go to this little cone, okay, and I want to click on it and I want to pull it down. And as you can see, as I pull it down, you start to see where it says negative 0.016. Okay, I'm going to click in that box. Okay, and I'm going to make that the same as I made the width, the width of my letter. So that is negative 0.050. Okay, and then you hit enter. And as you can see, that kind of dropped that negative space right there into the A. Okay. So now that we have the negative space inside of the A, we need to remove that space. And in order to remove that space, we're going to click on the negative space and we're going to click on the green while we're holding our shift key. Okay. And as you can see, it now says that there are two shapes selected. Okay. Another way to do that would be to take your mouse and just drag a box, but you want to be careful when you do that. You don't want to pick up anything else that might be on the work plane, but I'm going to click and drag just kind of over the big A and the negative space. And you can see again, I get my two shapes box to come up and it tells me that I have two shapes selected. So now that I have my two shapes selected, there's two things you can do. You can bundle group or you can union group. Okay. In this instance, we want to union group these two shapes because we're trying to create that negative space. So you can either click here or you can also on your hit Control G on your keyboard. I'm going to click this icon, give Tinkercad just a minute. And when it is done, you can see that we now have the negative space inside of our A. Okay. So now I want to take, I'm going to I'm going to unclick off of the A so that I can work with my upper layer. In order for this A to fit exactly into this space, we have to create the same dimensions, the same thickness as we did with our negative space. So I'm going to click on my A. Okay, I'm going to find that little square in the middle and I'm going to click on it. And again, I'm going to change that to 0.050. Hit enter. Okay. Now, if we want to work on this work plane, okay, if we keep the work plane where it is, okay, that second work plane that we created earlier, and I do my drop, it's going to drop it directly on top of the green layer, right? But as you can see, it's not down into the hole. It's still raised up a little bit. And we want to make sure that it is completely seated in that negative space area. So there's two ways to do that. You can click your cone, okay, and drag down. And when it opens, when the dimensions box opens up, you can go in there and you can type in again your negative 0.050 and hit enter, and it will drop that space. It will drop down into that space, or we can raise it back up. Okay. And if you click on your work plane again, click on work plane, drag out a new work plane and put that work plane in that negative space area. Click enter, click the A and click drop, and your A will drop directly into that negative space area. Okay. In order to get rid of all of these work planes, all you do is you drag out a work plane, click on it, just put it anywhere on the screen, and it will automatically bring you back to your original work plane. Okay. And that is it. That is how you create a two-layer letter in Tinkercad. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do this really quickly for the K. And then I'm going to show you how I bring them both into my slicing software. Okay. So I'm just going to move my A out of the way and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to work with the K. Okay. And I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to kind of turn it to the left so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Again, for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to go ahead and change the colors. Okay. And I'm just going to move that out of the way so that I can see that bottom layer. And then I'm just going to raise it out of the way. I'm going to take the K, I'm going to drop it back down to the work plane. Okay. And again, I'm on my original work plane. I'm going to change that thickness to 0.650. Okay. I'm going to click on my K. I'm going to click duplicate. I'm going to click hole. And I'm going to bring out a work plane. Oh, nope. Before I do that, I'm going to drag it down. And I'm going to change my thickness. I should have did that first, but I forgot. So I'm going to make sure to change my thickness to 0.050. Okay. I'm going to do the same for the other layer. So I don't forget to do it, 0.050. Okay. I'm going to bring out the work plane. I'm going to lay it on top of my K. Then I'm going to bring down, I'm going to click on the hole that I created and drop it to the work plane. I'm going to click on the cone and I'm going to make sure that it is at negative 0.050. Hit enter. I'm then going to highlight or drag a box around those two letters, or those two shapes, and click the union group to create that negative space. I'm going to then click my work plane, and click on work plane, put it into the negative space area, click on the letter and drop it to the work plane. Okay, that's it. So now I have my A and I have my K. Okay. Now, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to import these over into, I'm gonna, well, save the file as an STL, and then I'm going to bring them over into Tinkercad. So to kind of, you can do one of two things. I already up here named what this project is, and these are my D9 Greek letters. If you wanted to have the naming convention be helpful when you go to import them into your slicing program, you can change the name as you import each of the letters, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave them as is. So now if I want them to be the two images as an object when I bring them into Tinkercad, I have to bring them in as individual STL files. Okay. So in order to do that, that means I have to click on each one individually and export it out of Tinkercad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the A, and I just want to click on the green layer first. Okay. Oh, sugar. I forgot to make sure that the quality of my K was where I needed it to be. And I also forgot to make sure that the quality of the A, the upper letter, was where it needed to be. So let me go ahead and make sure I turn up the quality. Since the A is selected, the pink A, see it showing quality 10. We're going to go ahead and drag it all the way up to 24. We're going to do the same thing with our K. I clicked on the pink. I'm going to change that quality to 24. And I forgot to do it for the bottom letter. And because it's now union grouped, you cannot see the quality. So I have to go back and undo what I did so that you can see, I can get to it. So I've ungrouped it. I'm going to turn up that quality. Okay. And I need to move some things out of the way so that I don't embed the pink layer into the green so I'm going to raise that up, and then I'm going to go ahead and union group the negative space and the K. And then I'm going to bring my work plane back out, drop that into that negative space area, and click and drop that down to the plane. Okay, so now that I have everything the way that it needs to be, I can now export these things out of Tinkercad. Again, I'm going to export them out as individual files. So I'm going to click on my A. I'm going to click export, and I'm going to click STL, and it puts it in my download. Okay. Then I'm going to click the pink layer. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click export, click STL. Did that export? Okay, let's try it again. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to click the A. I'm going to click export, STL. Oh, okay. So it's preparing my model for export. Sometimes I have a lot of things on my screen right now, so it can take Tinkercad a little while sometimes to render everything. So down here, I see it said preparing. So here's my pink. So now here's my pink, my green and my pink. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it again. So I'm going to click the K. I'm going to click export STL. And then I'm going to click the pink export STL. Okay, so now I'm done with Tinkercad. Okay, I have my slicing program already up. So I'm going to click